You're standing at the grocery store, the line is 5 people deep behind you, and you're staring at the card reader like it's a bomb about to go off. It's just $30 of food, but there's this sharp acidic spike in the back of your throat. You know you have the money, but your nervous system is treating a routine swipe like a life or death gamble. Look, that's not a budget problem. That's your brain trapped in a generational survival loop that's been handed to you like a family curse. If I pay the rent tomorrow, I have 400 left, but the car insurance is due on the 15th. That's 120, which leaves me with, wait, did I pay the electric bill? Look, we've all been there. That physical, visceral tightening in your throat when you realize your bank account is a ticking clock. It's a literal biological response. Your amygdala, that tiny almond-shaped part of your brain meant for spotting saber-toothed tigers, is currently screaming because your checking account is under 3 digits. Your body is flooded with cortisol. You're in a state of high alert, but there's nothing to fight. There's just a digital screen and a sense of impending doom. Here's the thing. Most of us think this anxiety is a math problem. We think if we just had an extra $500, the weight would lift. But the reality is much darker. We are living in a psychological cage built by people who loved us but who are operating on a map of a world that no longer exists. My name is Adam, and I'm obsessed with the survival mode brain chemistry that keeps us broke, and why reaching a single financial milestone is the only way to turn that midnight anxiety into actual breathing room. Today, we're going to dismantle the 5 generational lies that are hardwired into your subconscious, because until you delete these files, your brain will stay in survival mode, and you will never, ever be allowed to build wealth. Okay, lie number 1. This one is the golden watch myth. Your parents probably told you, find a good company, work hard, stay loyal, and they'll take care of you. Right. Look, back in 1974, that was actually decent advice. You had pensions, you had a cost of living adjustment that actually, adjusted to the cost of living. But today, loyalty is essentially a poverty tax you pay for being comfortable. When you stay at the same company for 10 years, your brain enters what I call neural stagnation. You feel safe, and safe is the most dangerous word in finance. Your brain chemistry starts prioritizing the absence of threat over the presence of opportunity. Here's the cold, hard math. People who switch jobs every 2 to 3 years see an average salary increase of 10 to 20%. People who stay, they get a 3% merit raise that doesn't even keep up with the price of eggs. Your parents see job hopping as unstable, but in 2026, being dependent on a single employer who can delete your livelihood with a Zoom call is the definition of unstable. When you stay out of loyalty, you're staying in financial survival mode. You're playing defense. You're terrified of the what if. Wealth building mode requires you to realize that you are a business of one. You are a service provider, and if the market rate for your service goes up and your current client, your boss, won't pay it, you move. It's not being disloyal, it's being a rational actor in a system that doesn't have a heartbeat. Stop waiting for a gold watch that isn't coming. This next one is going to get me some hate comments. Lie number 2. Debt is a sin lie. Your parents likely viewed debt as a failure of character. Don't spend money you don't have. Pay cash for everything. Debt is a weight around your neck. And look, if we're talking about a 24% interest rate on a credit card for a vacation to Ibiza, yeah, they're right. That's consumer debt, and it's basically a parasite that eats your future. But here's where the survival brain trips you up. Because your parents taught you to fear debt, you've developed a phobia of leverage. Wealthy people don't use their own money, they use other people's money. In wealth building mode, you understand the difference between dead debt and living debt. Dead debt is that car loan for a vehicle that loses 10% of its value the moment you drive it off the lot. Living debt is a low-interest loan used to acquire an asset that pays you back. Think about it. If you save up $500,000 in cash to buy a rental property because debt is bad, it might take you 20 years. In those 20 years, inflation has turned that $500K into the equivalent of $200K. But if you use $100K as a down payment and leverage the bank's money, you own the asset. Now, the tenant pays the debt, you keep the equity. Your parents' advice was meant to keep you from drowning, but that same advice is preventing you from learning how to swim. If you're terrified of debt, you'll never use the most powerful tool in the financial shed. You're stuck in scarcity mode, hoarding pennies while the big players are moving millions with a signature. Oh man, this one is going to get me some hate comments. Line number 3, your home is your biggest investment. Listen, I love a nice house as much as the next guy, but let's be real. For 90% of people, a primary residence is not an investment. It's a massive soul-sucking liability. Your parents grew up in an era where housing prices were tied to actual wages. Today, they're tied to insanity. When you buy a house with a 30-year mortgage, you're not investing, you're locking yourself into a lifestyle that requires a massive monthly tribute to the bank. Here's the psychology of it. The homeowner brain is a trapped brain. Once you have that mortgage, your survival mode kicks into overdrive. You can't take risks at work because you need that check for the mortgage. You can't move to a better city for a better job because you're equity rich but cash poor. An investment is something that puts money into your pocket every month. A house takes money out. Taxes, insurance, maintenance, that weird leak in the basement that costs $4,000 for no reason. Look, if you want a house for your family, buy it, but call it what it is, a consumption choice. Do not tell yourself you're building wealth while you're spending 40% of your take-home pay on a pile of bricks. Wealthy people buy assets that pay for their houses. The survival mode middle class buys the house first and spends the rest of their lives trying to pay for it. See the difference? One is proactive, the other is a trap disguised as a dream. This one is the most painful because it attacks our pride. The just work hard, put your head down, and the money will follow lie. Here's the thing. Hard work is a prerequisite for success, but it is not the cause of it. If hard work were the secret to wealth, every construction worker and nurse would be a multimillionaire. The hard work lie keeps you in survival mode because it makes you focus on linear income. You think if I work 10 hours, I get X dollars. If I want 2X dollars, I must work 20 hours. But your time is finite. You only have 24 hours. The moment you tie your time to your money, you have capped your potential. Your parents' generation valued the grind. They saw exhaustion as a badge of honor. But in the digital age, wealth is built through scalability and systems. Wealth building mode is about decoupling your time from your money. It's about building a YouTube channel that earns ad revenue while you sleep. It's about writing code once that sells 1,000 times. It's about investing in a business where you aren't the one turning the wrench. When you believe the hard work lie, you become a high-performance slave. You're just a more expensive version of survival mode. You're still one burnout away from total financial collapse. Stop asking, how can I work harder, and start asking, how can I make my work redundant? That's the shift. That's how you move from the treadmill to the control room. Finally, line number 5, the most insidious one of all. Save your money. Don't take risks. Play it safe. Look, safety is an illusion. Your parents saw the stock market as a casino and the bank as a fortress. But the reality of 2026, the safest thing you can do, holding cash in a savings account, is a guaranteed way to lose 3 to 5% of your purchasing power every single year. Inflation is the invisible tax on the safe brain. When you play it safe, your brain is operating out of fear. You're terrified of losing what you have, so you never reach for what you could get. This is the definition of financial survival mode. It's loss aversion on steroids. But here's the kicker. The greatest risk in the modern world is not taking one. If you don't risk your capital by investing in assets, stocks, real estate, crypto, your own business, you're essentially choosing to work until the day you die. That's the safe path. Wealth building mode understands that risk is just the price of admission for freedom. You don't gamble, you take calculated risks. You educate yourself, you diversify. Your parents' safe path was a paved road to a comfortable retirement. Today, that road is full of potholes and leads to a cliff. The safe path is now the most dangerous route you can take. So why are we talking about this? Why does it matter that your brain chemistry is stuck in survival mode? Because when you are in survival mode, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for long-term planning, logic, and creativity, literally shuts down. Your brain is rerouting all of its energy to the crisis centers. You can't see the $100,000 opportunity right in front of you because you're too busy worrying about a $50 overdraft fee. Survival mode makes you small. It makes you reactive. It makes you a victim of the midnight math. But the moment you start debunking these lies, the moment you realize that loyalty is a choice, leverage is a tool, and safe is a trap, something happens. The weight on your chest, it starts to lift. Not because you're a millionaire yet, but because you've stopped fighting the wrong battles. You've stopped following a map that was drawn in 1980. Reaching that first milestone, whether it's 10K in the bank or your first $1,000 in passive income, it's not just about the money, it's about the chemical shift. It's about telling your amygdala, hey, we're okay. We're not being hunted anymore. We can breathe. And once you can breathe, that's when you start to build. Look, your parents meant well. They really did. They wanted you to be safe, but their version of safe is a prison sentence in today's economy. You have to be willing to be the crazy one in the family, the one who job hops, the one who uses debt strategically, the one who rents a modest apartment while investing every spare cent into assets that scale. It's going to feel uncomfortable. Your brain is going to scream that you're doing it wrong. That's just the old programming fighting for its life. Let it die. If this resonated with you, if you felt that 3 a.m. anxiety and you're tired of the survival loop, hit the subscribe button. We're deep diving into the psychology of wealth every week, and I want you here for it. Here's the thing. The world is changing faster than the advice we were given. You can either be a loyal, hardworking victim of the old system or a risky, strategic architect of the new one. The choice is yours. Go out there, break some rules, and for heaven's sake, start breathing. I'll see you in the next video.